photo of. Agent Gannon says the pool and the pier. They review the floor plan of Star Island, 2-Star Island, and AUSA says, what did you find here? He says, we found parts of an AR-15 rifle, sex toys, and Astroglide. Agent Gannon says, these magazines were loaded with bullets. AUSA says, what do these show? Gannon says the serial number has been cut out or, filed off. Hold on. Filed off. AUSA says, let's turn to 2 more exhibits. What are these? Gannon says, the ammunition we found. AUSA says, and these platform high heels, how high are they? 7 inches. AUSA says, this might be a good place to break for the day. So they've broken for the day, chat. And in the break for the day, we'll give you a recap in a short second. But hold on, let me just close all these tabs. It's very important that we understand the scope of what happened today. For us we care about the Cassie days and this and third, it's important that we realize that this trial still continues after Cassie. This is what happened early in the morning. Logic is going to give us a breakdown.
Power, control, and sex dominate the testimony this morning in the Diddy trial. I am Good Logic, your lawyer in downtown New York, watching the trial in the very courthouse where I myself have litigated cases in the past. Now this morning we started with the conclusion of the direct testimony and the cross-examination of Mr. David James, personal assistant to Diddy. He describes how Diddy controlled his entire world and the levels of attention he had to pay in order to ensure that he was serving properly as Diddy's personal assistant, and various things that Diddy would do in order to assert his control and authority over him during his time in 2 years that he worked for Diddy. For example, there was one incident where David James tried ecstasy and he was vibing amongst with the entire Diddy crew, and Diddy filmed him and he asked him, why are you doing that? And he said, now I have footage in case I ever need it. We also saw a cross-examination where he stood up fairly well. Now during his direct, David James testified about how when there was an incident that Diddy was going down to to a diner to confront Suge Knight, and when they first got there, he wasn't there, and they ended up going back.
So let's think about the people who have testified today. We have the ending of the testimony of David James, which is a former personal assistant. He's admitted he has a proffer. Regina Ventura, Cassie's mom. I believe there's 2 more, but the last person was an agent. But the person before then, who is the person before then? Oh, the person before then was a sex worker, and his name is Sheree Hayes. So we had 4 people testify today. By the way, I've been told by Myron Gaines, who's been in court, there's 17 witnesses. So let me put in my little notes. I got to put in my notes how much people are witnesses. We're going to go down all the witnesses. Witnesses. And these are people who are going to take the stand. Witnesses / victims take the stand. First was Flores, Security Intercontinental. Second was, who was the second? Was it Julian? No, it was, is the Phillips, the guy named Jules, sex worker. 3 was Cassie. 4 was, who was after that? There was a HSI agent who raided hotel in New York. 5 was Dawn Richards. 6 was Kerry Morgan. Tell me if my memory's failing me, Chad. 7 was James. Was it Kevin James or am I tripping? James, personal assistant. 8 was Sheree Hayes, another sex worker. 9. No. Actually, before then, 8 was Regina Ventura. Chat. I be drinking. I still got good memory. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm gonna show you what I'm writing in a second. And 10 was, who's 10th? It was Agent who? It was the agent. Hold on. Agent. Sorry. Give me a second. Yeah, Agent Gannon. Agent Gannon searched Miami crib. So the first HSI agent. Okay, so this is what I put up. So I hear there's 17 government witnesses. First, Flores did the Intercontinental. He was the Intercontinental Security. Second, Phillips, they called him Jules, sex worker. Then Cassie, HSI agent. Forgot the name, but they raided the hotel in New York when he finally got arrested. Dawn Richards, Kerry Morgan, James, the personal assistant, Regina Ventura, Cassie's mom, Sheree Hayes, another sex worker, and then Agent Gannon, who's on now, and he'll continue tomorrow. So remember, this case was scheduled to go for 8 weeks. If there's 17 witnesses, now, again, I don't know how much more they could drag out of this. It would imagine that at the end of this week, they might get through 15, and maybe at max next week, the government is all through all their witnesses. And once all their witnesses have been testified, then it becomes the defense case. We don't know if Diddy's going to testify, but we'd imagine that his defense is significantly shorter than the government's case. So if that takes 3 weeks, I say Diddy takes a week. I think a week. That's 4 weeks. Then we're going to go to closings, honestly. It gets that quick. Closings. Opening and, not opening, but closing statement from the prosecutor and rebuttals, and then some rebuttals. So I think this case is going rather quickly. Unless there's more people to testify. Myron said 17. It looked like they're going to have to bring more. Actually, we haven't gotten to, what's the person's name? Cassie took 3 days. Whenever they get to Jane Doe, who has a whole charge for her just like Cassie, she should take 3 days as well. So she's going to eat up another week. So the government, they're not going to be done in 3 weeks. They'll probably be done in a month. Yeah, they'll probably be done in a month. Yeah. So that'll be 4 weeks. Say they're done in 4 weeks. You get Diddy's team. They get 1 week. That's 5 weeks. Closing statements for both. That's going to be going into the 6th week. And then we get deliberations. So it's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Back and forth. And he was saying that was the first time he was aware of the fact that there were guns, because Diddy packed up and took David James with him along with a couple of his bodyguards and went looking for Suge Knight after he had heard word that Suge Knight was at a local diner. And it was shortly after that that David James says, I'm done with this. And he left that job because he thought that he would end up getting killed if he stayed there, or certainly badly injured. And he said, this is not what I signed up for. He held up fairly well in cross-examination, but I said that power and control and sex dominated, and we did not simply have David James this morning. We also heard from Regina Ventura, mother of Cassie Ventura, the woman who the state alleges was sexually trafficked by Diddy for the vast majority of their on and off 11-year history together. Now, Regina was testifying about basically how when she met Diddy and the entire the entire nature of developing a relationship between Diddy and Cassie as she perceived it, but she's not someone who was there in the day-to-day life. She was living in Connecticut while Cassie was in New York and later in LA, and she would see Cassie 3 to 4 times a year. And she told over of a couple of incidents where Diddy was displaying his dominance over Cassie, and not simply Cassie, but to some degrees even her and her husband. In or around December of 2011, this is around the time that Diddy learned that Cassie was having a relationship with Scott Mescudi, and he had assaulted her, and according to her, that she'd been kicked in the back, and she sent an email to her mother, and as well as to Capricorn Clark, who was one of Diddy's assistants, labeled threats, and explaining to her mother and to Capricorn that Diddy, Sean Puffy Combs, is threatening that over the Christmas holiday, right on or before, he's going to be releasing a sexually explicit video of her, and another one.
Now, I don't know if this came out before break, so hopefully he answers it. Remember, Cassie's parents paid Diddy $20,000, and I was wondering if it was for damage. Some people are alleging that it was because Diddy was upset that Cassie cheated, and I guess whatever he had spent on her during the time that she cheated, he wanted paid back for her. And the parents took it serious enough, they got a loan, and they gave Diddy $20,000.
Shortly thereafter, he also said that he has made threats against her to be physically violent to her, and said that it would not be by his own hands. In fact, he would likely be out of the country when such an event would happen. And Cassie had testified about this, and the specific email that she sent to her mother was brought up on her testimony, and now is brought up a second time in order to corroborate that she had received it. Now, shortly after sending that email, Cassie went back to her mother for Christmas, which is what she did every year, and her mother documented some of the physical injuries that she took, and those pictures were brought back up now because her mother is the one who took those pictures. And then she got notification, this is the mother, Regina, got notification from Diddy that Diddy was demanding of them $20,000 that he said that he had spent on Cassie, and he was expecting to be reimbursed for that money because she was cheating on him. And he was demanding that money and had his bookkeeper send wiring instructions.
Wow, nah, Diddy's a G. You cheating on me, and I spend 20 bands on you when you cheating on me? I need that back. I need that back respectfully. I need that back respectfully. Wow.
And they sent the money, and they were asked why. Why did you send that money? And she said, we were scared. But why did you send it? Because he demanded it. That's what she's saying. Now, she said that Diddy returned the $20,000 4 or 5 days later without any further explanation. A few months later, in April of 2012, she went to Los Angeles to visit Cassie, and at that point, Cassie and Diddy were in a fight over the fact that Diddy had, for one reason or another, taken Cassie's phone away from her. Regina explains how she was outside the building and got into a big argument with Diddy, demanding that he give the phone back, and he was yelling and screaming. She was yelling and screaming at Diddy and trying to hit him. And eventually, he gave the phone back and ended up popping into Cassie's Jaguar and taking her car. He's like, basically, here's your phone back, now I'm taking her car. And I think the objective of this testimony was to help establish for the jury that everyone who was in Diddy's world is under his thumb, under his control. Even if you're not in his world, you're Regina Ventura, Cassie's mom, that she felt seemingly extorted into giving money over, and that it's up to Diddy whether or not he's going to try punishing you. Whether you're Cassie, whether you're Cassie's mother, whether you're David James. That's what we saw this morning. And that you'll get punished if he's so inclined, and if he's inclined to let you go and give you back your $20,000, he'll give you back your $20,000. Finally, we had the last witness who came up to the stand is an individual who is nicknamed the Punisher. The Punisher is one of several individuals who Cassie referenced as persons who were regular participants in freak-offs. We barely got into his testimony so far. He explained that the nickname The Punisher comes innocently enough as a nickname that he earned on the basketball courts, and that he controlled a website called GetPunished.com, where he was an exotic dancer and he would do parties for people. So far, what he's described is not actually any technically sexual encounters, more that he was called to do a birthday party for a woman, and he shows up at Trump Towers and directed to pour oil on himself and create what he calls a sexy scene for a wife and her husband. He described that the man came out and said, and he was undressed, other than he was completely nude aside from wearing a veil, and directing Cassie, not that he was able to identify Cassie at that time, but directing the woman as to what she should be doing, and it doesn't describe any physical interaction between them other than they're putting oil on each other and themselves at the direction of the husband. He would later learn that the man was the defendant, Sean Puffy Combs, when he came for another appearance and put two and two together when he saw on the TV in the room he was in that the Essex House is so pleased to welcome Sean Puffy Combs to their establishments. And that was how he started putting two and two together, that guy over there is Sean Puffy Combs. That's where we're at so far. That's my update for this morning. I plan on giving you an update when we wrap up trial today. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe. If you want more.
Okay.
The questioning of
that he isn't the one who transported
to prosecute them, right?
Okay, so I want that evening update. I don't know if we're gonna get in a second.
Power, control.
Kind of does make sense. Okay. So I feel like we do kind of have an understanding. I mean, unfortunately, when you're watching trials and you're not on the jury, the salacious shit kind of really pops out a little bit more than normal. Okay, we've seen that before. Fox News. Fox 5 New York. Fox 5. Okay. All right, let's see what Shorty got going on.
Happy Tuesday, Diddy Day 7.
Oh, by the way, chat, she did follow back. She DM'd me too. Don't worry. Don't worry. But, chat, I'm not going to cross the party line. No white woman until end of summer. So, she DM'd me. Nah.
I'm going to give you the morning update. I apologize about my audio yesterday. I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. So day 7, Diddy walked into court this morning in really good spirits. He actually turned around. There's a press section and a public section in the courtroom. And he turned around to the section of the public and he gave like a heart to them. And one woman gave it back. That was an interesting moment. But we finished off with the we finished off with the rest of the direct of David James, the assistant. And David James testified some pretty things that I thought were shocking. He was forced to take a polygraph twice when Cassie's love bracelet went missing, and another time when Diddy's watch went missing. And he described being very nervous for both of those. And he said that he passed the first polygraph totally fine, but the second one, he said he passed the question about stealing the watch, but the guy that was administering it was like, "Are you nervous about something?" And he said that he admitted to taking a pair of Sean John jeans and like a bottle of Ciroc or something like that. He also talked about not seeing any physical violence between Cassie and Diddy, but he did see them argue a lot. He also testified, and this is direct, he testified that one day in January of 2009, he was doing some research on something for Diddy at Diddy's house, and Diddy and Cassie walked in from a club. I guess Cassie went to bed, but Diddy was very irate and kind of ran over to him because of some blog post that got released about Cassie getting hit at a club, and he really accused David James of maybe spreading this or releasing this to a blog. And he said that he was very scared because Diddy kind of pushed him out of the way and started searching his browser history to see if he was lying. And he describes that moment as just being really tense and really shocking. He talked about how he, at one New Year's Eve party, he took ecstasy. He was off and he stole it from Diddy's med bag, and he was vibing, having fun at this party. He actually called what he was doing around the party Diddy bopping. Sorry, I didn't mean to do it. That was dumb. And when he said Diddy bopping, Diddy actually laughed. And so he said the next day he's back at work, and apparently he said Diddy took video of all of his parties. So Diddy was playing back video footage of this party, and he's like, yo, David, is that you? And David said, yeah, that's me. And he said, were you on drugs or on ecstasy? And he said, yeah, I was. And Diddy said something along the lines of, well, I'm going to keep this in case I need it, type of thing. We also heard about David James advancing rooms for Diddy. And advancing rooms could mean anything from, a green room at the Ellen Show to hotel rooms. So he described making them very comfortable for Diddy, and he would go and get snacks at Dwayne Reed, and he would be reimbursed for this. He would use his own money, and then he would submit expense reports to Bad Boy and be paid for them. Woo! So he actually said, and this is nothing to do with the trial, but it was so weird. He said that Diddy would request things like Jell-O and applesauce, and I was just like, oh, is he getting his wisdom teeth out? But, he also said that Diddy liked to put applesauce on cheeseburgers. But when he had to buy baby oil or Astroglide or condoms, he said he would not expense these, and he would get paid through cash, through like a security guard or something. And just going to the cross-examination for just a minute, when he was being crossed, Agnifilo really wanted to hammer home. So, when you bought these things, the baby oil, the Astroglide, this was not through Bad Boy. This was not through Bad Boy. He kept kind of, hammering that home. All right, so he also talked about an incident where he was called to bring some food to Cassie and Diddy at a hotel, and it took him about an hour, or maybe he was not just food, maybe it was like an iPod or iPad, but he said that when he got to the hotel, no one was answering the door, so he used the key because he would set up the hotel, so he would have a key. So he said he put the key in and he walked in, and Cassie was on her back in the bed with the covers pulled up, and the way they wanted us to, I guess, picture this was that David James said he had seen Cassie sleep before, but it didn't look like she was sleeping because he always saw Cassie sleep on her side, not on her back. And then he saw a naked man with long hair who was very well endowed, and he thought Diddy was in the shower. And then they left it at that, kind of hinting, okay, you guys know what this is, you know what's going on here. He also talked about the Mel's Diner incident, which, at this point, I think we've heard a couple different versions of this story, and his version was a little bit different. So he testified.
Shorty a little baddie, huh? Nah, like, chat, we can't deal with snow bunnies this month, bro.
Testified that Diddy sent he and D-Rock out for cheeseburgers, and Diddy was home with Cassie. They go out for cheeseburgers. They're in the car in like a silver type of SUV they described, and they see D-Rock says, yo, that's Suge. So David James is driving and D-Rock is in the passenger seat, and he gets out. Sorry, it's tangled. He gets out and he goes around to Suge, who's in the passenger seat of the car, doesn't get out. I guess they exchange hellos, and Suge doesn't recognize D-Rock, and he says, yo, I'm Biggie's boy. And Suge says, what are you doing in my city? And he says, I'm making money, whatever. They, say bye. He goes into Mel's Diner. Hopefully you guys, sorry, can hear me. He goes into Mel's Diner. Didn't need that close up. And David James goes with him. And I guess it's glass, this location. So D-Rock looks outside, and he said that he sees 4 different SUVs pull up, on different corners of the parking lot. And then he sees Suge hand a gun, or somebody hand a gun to Suge. So D-Rock's like, yo, we gotta go. And then David James describes them going home. He said that, D-Rock tells Diddy this. Him and Cassie are outside arguing, and Diddy instructs him to get into another car, a black SUV, where David James is driving, and D-Rock is in the passenger seat, and Diddy's in the back with 3 handguns on his lap. When they got to Mel's, it appeared that Suge was gone. He drove around for a while. Essentially, they ended up going home, and David James said he was very scared, and he said that he immediately went to Bad Boy after this HR, and he quit. And he said he gave 6 months notice they could find someone else, and they were like, well, do you want to work at Sean John, or do you want another job, whatever? And he's like, no, I'm good, I'm out. So he described being scared. Now, that is, let me see. I think, well, I'll get to this because this came up during the defense. There were some moments. But yeah, so he also described that Diddy would have some Viagra in his medicine bag and some Just for Men. Nothing to do with the case, but just little details. Yeah, we heard about this Louis Vuitton med bag again. Yeah, I think I got it all. Okay, so we'll go to the cross. Now, yeah, when we got to the cross examination, it was pretty interesting because Mark Agnifilo really was asking him questions about Mel's Diner. Like, are you sure that you drove D-Rock to Sean Combs' house and Diddy didn't have to go pick him up? And he's like, yeah, I'm sure. There was a back and forth for a moment that I was confused about. I'm very curious about this. And then Agnifilo was like, so how are you able to talk about this right now? Aren't you scared that you're going to get in trouble? And he said, no, I have a proffer agreement. So that was kind of a big moment. I thought that he had a proffer agreement. And yeah, he got him to admit that, he respected Diddy and he respected Diddy as a businessman, I should say. Sorry. He respected him as a businessman because he loved Sean John. Sorry, I'm trying to keep this video to 10 minutes. And, he asked about, like, wasn't Bad Boy like one big family? And he said, yeah, they were my friends. I liked them. He talked about him getting a prostitute with Roger Bonds, and he actually said, I didn't know she was a prostitute. Sorry, I guess that is my opinion because I was like, dude, you had me until you said you didn't know she was a prostitute. Okay. And he actually said that he paid her $200 and he was surprised, and she asked to take a shower, and he was like, yeah, for $200. Like,
whoa, breaking news. They're saying, let me see. They're saying, chat, Kid Cudi's going to take the stand this week. Oh, my God. Kid Cudi's coming into court with a crop top. Wow. Yeah, Kid Cudi's is taking a stand. Wow. Crush a bit, little bit. This is really important. Kid Cudi not a street nigga though. It's valid.
Me it back. It was kind of a weird, funny moment. But okay, just to move on, I'll update, later if I missed anything. Then we heard from Cassie's mother, Regina Ventura, very quick on the stand. And she talked about, this was crazy. She talked about that threatening email that Diddy had sent to Cassie, or I'm sorry, the threatening email description that Cassie sent to her mother when she was dating Kid Cudi about Diddy releasing these sex tapes of her and hurting Kid Cudi and Cassie. And apparently Diddy had asked for money, $20,000 from Cassie's parents, and they took out a mortgage to give it to him. And I guess it's a little unclear if it was he was asking Cassie or her parents, but they gave him $20,000. I guess you could call that extortion. I think that's what they're alluding to here. And yeah, they took out a second mortgage or a mortgage to pay him. And then 45 days later, it was returned. So there's that. And then she described the phone incident in LA where he took Cassie's phone. She was in town. She called the police and they had an argument outside of Cassie's building. And he eventually gave it back. She described kind of trying to hit him and stuff and lunge at him. And then once he gave it back, he took off with her car. Now, the defense did not cross-examine him. A strategy, a good one. You don't cross-examine the victim's mother, I feel like. And so, when I left, they were starting with an escort named the Punisher. So we heard a lot more about baby oil, a lot more about how he came into the picture the same way as Daniel Phillip. But yeah, more later. I'm sure I forgot stuff.
I rock with her. Chat, I think me, her, and Myron could, you know what I mean, do some good shit.
Diddy trial day 6 afternoon update. We will get right into it. It began with the cross-examination of Cassie's friend, or former friend, excuse me, Carrie Moore.
Don't worry, Dr. Umar, I'm holding the faith right now. Okay. Dr. Umar, I'm holding it down, gang. That was a quick afternoon session, I'll say that. Chill, chat, chill. I'm not gonna lie, educated woman is attractive.
Well, more explosive testimony in the sex trafficking trial against Sean Diddy Combs.
Singer Dawn Richard testified, telling jurors that Diddy threatened to kill her. Fox 5's Lisa Everett inside of the court.
So, Elizabeth, I want to his mother. So we knew that she was going to testify today. What was her value to the prosecution's case? Let's start there, and then we'll move into the cross-examination.
Yeah, well, initially we had thought, and by we mean me, Elizabeth, thought that Cassie's mother was inside that courtroom. I spoke with Cassie's attorney, Doug Wigder, who informed me that the person that we had initially thought was Cassie's mom was actually a victim's right advocate. So when Cassie's mom came into that courtroom, I was like, yes, this is definitely Cassie's mother, because they look so much alike. You would think that they were just looking kind of at an older version a little bit of Cassie. But when she came inside that courtroom today to give her testimony, she just kind of walked up to the witness stand, kind of similar to how other witnesses have been doing it. But I think most notably, Diddy didn't really look in her way or look in her direction, at least when she had first entered the courtroom. At least when Cassie came inside the courtroom to do her testimony, even if it was on a day of cross, if it was on a day of direct, Diddy would kind of turn around and look whenever she had entered that courtroom, if he wasn't kind of chatting with his lawyers or anything like that. But as far as Regina Ventura coming into the courtroom today, it wasn't the same case. Diddy kind of sat while he was at his defense table chatting with his lawyers, but a lot of the testimony as far as Regina Ventura being on the stand today was kind of in relation to just everything she had witnessed from her daughter during her relationship with Diddy years before. So she had essentially said that she had met Diddy for the first time in 2006, actually when Diddy wasn't Cassie's boyfriend. This is when Cassie was actually signing to Bad Boy. Regina just knew of Diddy as Cassie's boss at the time, before the two being Cassie and Diddy began dating. They dated here in New York City, and then they had moved to Los Angeles together. And once they made that move to LA, because Regina Ventura, according to her, she had been living in New London, Connecticut for about 57 years. So she has roots here on the East Coast. So when Cassie had moved over to the West Coast, it wasn't the same situation, because she's all the way on the other side of the country, essentially. And so the contact and the visits weren't as frequent as when she was here in New York. But even when she was here in New York, it wasn't that often, too. But what the prosecution really wanted to know from Regina was everything that had happened specifically in December of 2011. If you guys remember that time period, that's around the time that Diddy had accused Cassie of cheating on him with Kid Cudi and the whole Kid Cudi relationship. So around this time period, Cassie came home from the holidays. We saw an exhibit photo from an email from December 23rd of 2011, where Cassie emailed her mom on this email under the email address of Veronica Bang, one of the aliases that she had used. And she also attached Capricorn Clark, who had worked for Diddy, into this email. So I was able to scribble down just as much as I could as far as what all the contents were in this email, because this is an email that we had previously seen before. And so what Cassie relayed to her mother as well as Capricorn Clark was the threats that had been made toward me the threats that have been made toward me by Sean Combs are that he's going to release 2 explicit sex tapes of me, one on Christmas Day, maybe before or right after, and another one sometime soon after. He also said that he will be having someone hurt me and Scott being Kid Cudi, physically. And it wouldn't be at the hands of Diddy himself. It would be essentially kind of saying that it would be up to somebody else's hands. But when Cassie's mom was on the stand and just kind of responding to everything like that, she had said things such as, the sex tapes threw me. I thought he was trying to hurt my daughter. And then they brought in that Diddy essentially demanded $20,000 from Cassie, pretty much to the point that Regina and her husband, Cassie's father, took out a home equity loan for $20,000 just to meet Diddy's demand after he had requested money. And so Regina said that Diddy was essentially angry because he had spent money on Cassie, and Cassie was with somebody else, that other person being Kid Cudi, and that Regina had sent this $20,000 check after getting this loan from the bank to the bad boy account. But here's the thing, Jesse, is just 4 to 5 days later, this check was actually returned to Regina and her family, so the money was given back to them. And this was something before the jury had even come in today that they were talking about in court outside of the presence of the jury, because the defense didn't want this testimony yet. They wanted nobody to hear this testimony. But this testimony came in today, so we did kind of know what a preview of it would be. And so she had testified to that fact today while on the stand. But we had seen some more exhibit photos, those taken of Regina, again, in that 2011 time period, of Cassie being bruised. They had mentioned that Cassie, her particular hairstyle around this time was that of a shaved head. Regina confirmed that between 2009 to 2011, Cassie's hair was shaved, and that's what the hairstyle that we had seen of Cassie kind of posing with some of the bruises inflicted by her then boyfriend, that being of Diddy. And so a lot of the big testimony, especially when it came to Regina Ventura being under direct examination, was about this $20,000 loan. Then there was another incident they had talked about. This one from this is from 2016. So this was around this was actually that same year the Intercontinental Hotel incident had happened, that essentially Regina traveled to LA for Cassie's birthday. Diddy took Cassie's phone after being mad at her. And then there was this whole incident where Regina called the police, and that Diddy gave the phone back eventually. Regina was screaming at Diddy to give her daughter her phone back, and that Regina even owned up to the fact that she tried to hit Diddy while the person in the middle of this was D-Rock, one of the security guards, was in this kind of trying to de-escalate the entire situation. But when it came to the cross-examination, I didn't even know what to expect for the cross-examination. But spoiler alert, there actually was no cross-examination. Mark Agnifilo got up on the stand and he essentially said, "I have no questions for you, Miss Ventura." Yeah. And then Regina Ventura was off the witness stand and done.
Okay, we're gonna get the afternoon. What the fuck was that? All right, we're going to get a update on the afternoon. I want to cover this Tory thing real quick. So if you guys don't know, it appears that there's mountain support for Tory Lanez, either pardon or a look into the case about maybe some of the evidence that seemed to be maybe in his favor, and that maybe a conviction should have not been the decision. So, sorry. If you don't know, we've seen a ton of celebrities post this. They're supporting Tory Lanez and they're advocating for his release. And I mean, some of the people who have posted this, including Drake. It's included, who else? So we got Drake, Kodak Black. Where is it? I don't even. Yeah, Drake shared a petition urging Governor Newsom to pardon Tory Lanez. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Let me be very clear. I'm a straight shooter with y'all. I love Tory, but I'm always a straight shooter. So where Tory's at right now, he has Hail Marys left. I'm going to be honest. This is Hail Mary land, okay? He's on 4th and 32. This is not 4th and 2. It's 4th and 32. When you get in the land of you need a pardon or you need what's called a habeas corpus. A habeas corpus usually is for people who are detained without cause, and they're detained for a while, and there's no legal basis for their detainment. And sometimes, and especially when you see people, sometimes it's even illegal aliens detained in some very non-traditional or cool conditions, Guantanamo Bay, etc. The idea of habeas corpus is the government needs to explain or give a reason why they are detaining someone and preventing them from their rights, which is their right to freedom. I say that to say it's a Hail Mary, okay? I'm always going to be cautioned and I'm always going to be measured in how I speak about Tory Lanez case because I was one of those people that thought Tory was going to beat the case. So I don't want to ever give y'all false hope to act like Tory's about to get out tomorrow. I want to be very, very honest, okay? I think the people who did that, who went to trial, the reporters, I think they weren't truthful. And people like me, who I sit here, and even with this case with Diddy, sometimes we feel we're getting A, and B happens. I talked to Mo Gagnon later. He said he had a feeling that things could go left once Tory's own witness switched up on him for the prosecutor. So I want to be very careful. If you're wondering why I give the updates on Tory like this, I want to be very honest. There's 2 appeals in. One's appeal for a new trial, right? Citing that, hey, there's new evidence. Number one, well, they haven't put this new thing that Kelsey's bodyguard has witnessed or heard some stuff. They haven't put that in yet, but the current evidence says the DNA evidence, new reports or analyzation of the DNA that was found on the weapon actually excludes Tory, and that's exculpatory. Appellate court has not weighed on that yet. That is a possibility. I'm being honest with y'all. I'm giving y'all, I'm a straight shooter. I think it's 30% right now for Tory. So that's 30%. They have another thing called habeas corpus, 30%. You don't add both of them because it's either one or the other, so it's still 30%. It's one or either, or one or the other. Then the last thing, which I think is a 10% chance, is what's called a pardon. Tory Lanez cannot be pardoned by the President of the United States. Donald Trump does not have the authority to pardon a state prisoner. He has the influence to affect and influence the pardon of a state prisoner, but it's very rare historically that any president tries to meddle in state business, especially with violent offenses to that nature. But it has been done before. Will Trump say, oh, nah, get Tory out of jail? I think that would move the needle. I don't think so, being honest. So how do you get pardoned if you're Tory Lanez? You get pardoned in a state court by the governor of California. Now, let me tell you why being pardoned is very important for Tory Lanez. Tory Lanez has been convicted of what's called a felony. Usually a felony in most places is a crime that is punishable by a sentence of more than 365 days in jail, which means a year and a day. Okay? Tory Lanez, who's not a resident of the United States, because he was convicted of a felony that carries the punishment of over a year and a day, by the way, he was given 10 years. What happens is that ICE and immigration proceedings immediately kick in once he's done with the sentence. Tory would be seen and now known as a convicted felon. And usually when convicted felons serve their sentence, at least especially under the new guidelines that Trump got, you get immediately deported. If it was Biden, maybe not. Under Trump, you get immediately picked up by ICE and deportation starts. Now, Trump is only going to be president for the next 3 years. 2028, he will be out, barring some other things that we don't know about now. We don't know if there will be a Republican in or another Democrat. If it's Democrat, they might relax all of the deportation laws and might allow people who have been convicted of felonies to still stay in the United States. However, right now, if Tory was released, say he did his 10 years and was released right now, he would be put in an ICE detention facility to be deported back to Canada. Okay. The person who could do the pardon is someone named Governor Gavin Newsom. He's a liberal governor for the state of California. And the reason why I say there's a 10% chance, because I do believe the Tory Lanez team and everybody else is doing an amazing job of creating what we call a pardon package. Some of you guys might not know this. The governor, the president of the United States don't just pardon random people. You get advocacy groups, you get a lot of money behind somebody, and they start putting together a package. It's almost like PR. They start promoting. That's what happened with Lil Wayne when he got pardoned. That's what happened with Kodak Black when he got pardoned. I can tell you this now. He got pardoned, and this is why I'm cool with this guy. Bradford Cohen, a guy who's came on here a lot, he's friends with Trump. He referred both cases to Trump for pardoning, worked with other people to do the package, and Trump pardoned Lil Wayne and Kodak. Everything I'm saying here is all facts. The problem is with Gavin Newsom, he's a Democratic, liberal governor in a constituent or a state of California that loves homosexuals, transsexuals. They prefer women over men. And for that very reason, because of their woke ideology, it's very unlikely that that person will be down to pardon someone who is alleged to have shot a woman, whether it's believed or not. Why? Is it because Tory is innocent or guilty? No. It's because your constituents need you to be woke, and that's not woke. Woke is protect women. Woke is believe all women. Woke is even if they lie 50 times, believe them again. So I believe that this pardon, and I do think it's helping to change public perception, because I do think now it's cool to support Tory. Will this governor who has the power, because I'm telling you Trump won't touch it, will he pardon Tory? I don't think so. I just don't think so. However, I do think that the growing pressure, the growing noise is good for Tory. And I know I say I don't think he will, but you never know. The noise might grow so loud enough that he might have to. Now, I say that to say because when I speak about freeing Tory Lanez, I like to speak from a legal perspective. I've spoke my own opinion many a times, but at this point, it doesn't matter what your opinion is, whether he shot her or not. Now we're talking about, despite your opinion, do you believe his sentence should be commuted, which means shortened? Do you think he should be pardoned, which means his crime should be forgiven? Again, it doesn't matter if you believe he did it or not. We know what a conviction is. Now, I say that to say, because I hate when people try to put me on sides of this Tory shit. I'm a straight shooter when it comes to this shit. I'm going to be straight the whole time. So, Drew, put this up there. This is the straightest shooter you're going to get with any of this shit. I done told you, I think Tory got between a 10% and a 30% chance of being released. Maybe it will grow because people do love him. And people are starting to realize that absent this woke ideology, you're able to look at other things that actually worked in his favor that made you think, damn, well, how did he get convicted despite these things? You know, this idea or theory that Kelsey Nicole shot Meg, people said, well, why would Meg say her? Also, they said, well, Tory's on the jail phone. He basically admitted it. Well, let me give you another scenario. I don't know who did the shooting, so don't ask me for my opinion. I do have an opinion, but it's not about my opinion. It's all about the law at this point. So I'm only going to speak in fact. But I'm going to use one conjecture and I'm going to use one scenario for y'all, because when people keep talking about Tory in a jail call, they act like he acknowledged and admitted that he did it, because they said, well, why would somebody, if he didn't do it, get on and apologize, say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. I hope y'all forgive me. That's a great question. I ask that shit to myself too. I'm human. I ask that shit to myself. I'm not on nobody's payroll. I ask questions. But I implore you guys to be fair across the board. Be fair. Ask the similar question in the other sense. If this been your homegirl for over 10 years, you met Tory 6 or 8 months ago, I don't care what dick he done slung on you. If Tory Lanez done shot your homegirl, even if y'all were arguing over a man, why the hell would you be on the phone with Tory Lanez? Riddle me that. So you knew her for over 10 years. And a nigga who, let's say he shot her, because you were there. Why would you be on the phone with him? Why would you be on the phone with him listening to, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that? Why? Why not say on the phone, Tory, why you shoot my friend? Why did you hurt my friend? Why were you trying to hurt her or me? These are questions we need answers. There's a lack of credibility all over the place. You wanted us to believe that he shot you, but didn't want us to have to understand maybe if he did, what the motive would be. You're the victim. You're shown up in court. You've pronounced on social media what happened. But yet you go on Gayle King and say, I've never had sex with this man a day in my life. We have no intimate relationship. All the while knowing that the argument and fight that started was because y'all had an intimate relationship. But you were cool to go lie to Gayle King. There's too many inconsistencies. You see, the American justice system, which I'm so happy to be a Jamaican American, someone who vehemently defends not only the flag, but what we have with our Constitution and our way of life. I love being here. Trust me, I love it here. Why on earth, if there are so many inconsistencies, would we not have some doubts or reason or cause to question why is someone incarcerated when even the average Joe could say this doesn't seem like it's beyond a reasonable doubt? We had changed statements. We had people who couldn't keep the same type of, okay, we said one thing here. No, I didn't fuck him. No, now I did. Oh, I didn't know there was a gun. Now I know there's a gun. The stylist is saying this. Sean Kelly is saying this. The stories are all over the place. But nevertheless, I'm a guy who believes in law and order. Without law and order, we have nothing. Does the system get things wrong at times? Of course. We should deal with it civilly and through the legal system. And this is where I get confused. You know, I said this about the DDG case, and I've said this in many other cases when it comes to women and men. A lot of times when women can't win the narrative battle, they get legal. It's very important that they win the narrative battle. So let me explain. Newsflash. I want to give I don't know if this is a congratulations I need to give, or I don't know if, I should just say a prayer for her because, she's, I guess, technically a victim. I want to say to Meg Thee Stallion, Meg, I empathize with you. We pray for you. If you ask me personally, I do believe you got hurt that night. I don't know off the hands of who. I do hear what you say, but there's a lot of things that suggest otherwise. And that's why I'm skeptical. But I do pray for Meg that she gets the healing that she needs, because unfortunately for her, it doesn't feel like her peace is coming from the fact that she was vindicated in even the story she told on the stand because Tory was found guilty. It appears that the vindication she seeks is that Tory stays in jail. Now, let me explain the difference. She went to that trial. She cried. She testified. She gave her story. The jury agreed with her. Now, that should be her healing journey. We've seen in situations where someone has done something, maybe they've been contrite enough, maybe the laws have changed, maybe other circumstances that came about We've seen people be let out of jail, their sentence reduced, or other things. I say this to say people campaigning for the release, the pardon, or the reinvestigation of the trial, I think Meg has to realize that's not an anti-you thing. If you're a victim, you should be working on your own victimhood. It's not tied to Tory being locked up. We've seen many people get let out, and it's not because of who they supposedly harmed. It could be because of a bunch of extenuating circumstances. So when I see Meg commenting or she feels offended that there's any movement about Tory's possible release, that confuses me. Meg, you already got your justice. They said he's guilty. The idea of how long he serves, or if people want him to get out, or even if it's a pardon. And this is what I've always said about Meg. If she's playing a political PR game, you already got your win. Who gives a fuck what Tory's saying now? As long as Tory doesn't mention you. And Tory doesn't mention you. You have a restraining order against him and he's in jail. He can't. And it goes back to what I keep saying. What's my new favorite saying? If they can't win the public narrative, they start to sue. Meg, Tory isn't the one that's saying you're lying, his fans. When you come out and lash out and call him a demon and a devil, because he's not going to just take this conviction lying down and just go die on the sword, he's saying, I'm going to fight for my freedom because I do have rights. That's not a indictment of you. That's a man trying to fight for his own rights. But you've taken it to be the opposite. You're taking what Tory's fans and the growing momentum. There was a time when UN was basically trying to say if anybody supported Tory, they better stay there. They're going to be over there with them because features, touring, other type of collabs, it was out the window. But we just seen the biggest artist in the world, Drake, he supported. Seen a bunch of other people they're supporting. I guess I'm not trying to be adversarial here with Meg. I'm trying to let her know that the people who are riding for Tory Lanez freedom is not necessarily an indictment on you. You already got your conviction. I feel like she's searching for true peace, but also career, happiness. If Tory gets out, you know what happened in the trial. You should heal off of that. But this idea where you keep putting up messages, like, for example, this. And by the way, if Tory was putting up messages towards you, I would say the same to Tory. Meg put up a message, a lot of it that was typed in caps, saying, at what point are y'all going to stop? Making me have to relive being shot by Tory. At what point are Tory and y'all fans going to stop lying? Like, how much is the check to keep harassing me? Why is this happening every day? 1 minute him or y'all are saying I was never shot, to now y'all are saying, to now y'all letting him play in y'all face again and say I was shot, but it wasn't him. Okay. I'm sick of this shit. Leave me alone. He ain't dare get on that stand and deny he shot me. And that was his choice because he knows he did that shit. I don't give a fuck about a blog or a bot. Why in the world would me, Meg Thee Stallion, have to lie about this motherfucker about a shooting? Or shooting me? How y'all mad at the person that got shot? Facts are facts. He did it. It was proven in court. Fuck the hate campaign on the internet. Tory, you shot me. Ain't no new fucking evidence. Y'all been saying the same shit for years. Tory, please leave me alone, you fucking demon. I'm off this silly ass internet shit. Bye. Meg, I get you. The only problem I see is that Tory Lanez doesn't mention your name directly. Tory Lanez just got recently stabbed 14 times. We don't even know if he's completely breathing or could even move on his own at this point. If Tory was slandering you, if Tory was dropping songs, making fun of you, acting like you were lying, that would be another thing. Tory Lanez is nursing himself back to health after a pretty much attempt on his life. You are never going to find true healing if you're concerned about what the hell Tory and Tory's fans, specifically Tory fans, are doing. That's the problem. So again, I watched this and I said, well, Tory didn't say nothing. Well, what is she talking about? Then it dawned on me. She wants this guy in jail forever. She wants him to die in jail. I digress. All right. She mad at Tory. Tory ain't say shit. She's mad at fans because fans are now believing Tory. And by the way, let me put it up to this. So actually, yeah, I didn't mean to end there. The problem is Meg is watching the public narrative change. The Kodak Blacks, the Drakes of this world, they would shout out Tory, but they were scared to just post a petition saying this man is wrongly accused. A lot of people are saying it now. It's growing. That sentiment is like a seed that you just planted, and now it's growing. That 30% I said for each that 30% for each appeal, I think with public support, it's now going to be turned to closer to 50. You have other people like Rep Luna, who's a congresswoman out of, I believe, Florida. She has tweeted in support of Tory Lanez by saying, and let's get to this. She says, we have compelling evidence proving that Tory Lanez innocence. He will be released in the next 36 hours. Those who rush to call for his incarceration and worse yet push false evidence should prepare to be held accountable. Before then, she tweeted yesterday speaking about Tory, and she actually said, see if I can find it. Maybe I can't. Regardless, she continued to tweet and said, Tory Lanez's defense was denied full access to DNA evidence. The entire samples were used by the prosecutor before the defense testing. Reports weren't shared until before a just trial. That's a violation of due process. Now, I'm going to be honest. I think that's criminally wrong. I don't know if Tory has much of a case on that on appeal. I believe that the government's case is that we offered you the chance to test, you declined. That's why we used all of it up. We'll see if that's their situation. Anna Pauline Luna, again the rep for Florida, says Tory Lanez was sentenced to 10 years, despite having no prior record, largely due to a firearm enhancement law now under scrutiny for racial bias. Black defendants face a 92% higher rate of this enhancement. That's not justice, that's discrimination. Justice isn't served when due process is ignored, evidence is mishandled, and race plays a role in sentencing. Tory Lanez deserves a fair hearing, and if justice prevails, he deserves his freedom. She then continued by saying Tory Lanez's conviction and sentencing raises major constitutional concerns. The First Amendment, use of lyrics as evidence. The Sixth Amendment, the right to confrontation. 14th Amendment, equal protection under racially biased enhancements, says these issues are under urgent review. Now, keep in mind, she is a rep in Florida, not in California, where this case is actually at. Says Tory Lanez has filed a direct appeal, a habeas petition, and a successful habeas, all now consolidated by the California Court of Appeals. They have seated a panel. Oral arguments are coming. The case is far from over. Due process matters. We'll see where that goes, people. We'll see where that goes. Okay. Hold on one second.
Diddy Day 7 afternoon update. We're going to start with the direct of Sheree Hayes, also known as, quote, the Punisher. Now, he is not technically an escort. He actually worked for a company called Hunkamania. I think I called it Hulkamania because that's what I heard at first, but it's Hunkamania, and that would make more sense. Male strippers, exotic dancers, and he also he ran this website, thepunisher.com, which was his own website for his own services, which is strictly dancing for bachelorette parties, etc. And he said that he got the nickname The Punisher when he was playing basketball in New York growing up. That was his style of basketball. I don't even know. I don't know sports. He punished people, whatever. Okay, so he described the same, I guess, way that Daniel Phillip described meeting Cassie and Diddy. Cassie called him, said that she wanted his services for a bachelorette party. He showed up at the hotel, which was the Trump Hotel in New York City. And just a side note, I'm on direct, but the defense was like, so you only worked or saw them in New York City. They didn't say work, sorry. They said you only met with them in New York City. And he said, yes, you know what they're getting at. So he said he shows up at the Trump Hotel, and Cassie shows up in a robe, and she says, it's my birthday. My husband wanted to plan something special for me. So, can you just set the mood here? And can we just make the room sexy and stuff? And he's like, okay, well, how do we do that? And she handed him a stack of money to do this. And he said later it was $800. He counted it when he went to the bathroom. He comes out, he takes his towel off, and she said, we should start rubbing baby oil on each other. And he actually described seeing bowls of water with baby oil in the water that they used. And then he said that Diddy came out, although he didn't know who Diddy was at the time, and he didn't know it was Cassie either. He came out in something that covers his face, and he could only see his eyes. And he would, direct them as usual, and then masturbate a little bit. Everything that we've heard before, basically. But Cassie and the Punisher, he said that he didn't finish, and Cassie asked him if he wanted to finish. I was unclear if they had intercourse this time. I don't think they did. I missed just a chunk of his testimony, just full disclosure. So the first time, I'm not sure, but he said when I got back in the room, Cassie asked me if I wanted to finish, and I said no. I took more money. They gave me $1,200 more, and I left. And this is interesting because he is the second escort, let's call him, that we have heard from who experienced erectile dysfunction, although he described, the Punisher, or Hayes described his erectile dysfunctioning kind of starting before Cassie and Diddy. I just want to throw that out there. And then he also would say things like that Cassie would seem to sigh at Diddy's direction, kind of like, it was a job, and those are my words. The direction during the FOs. And so it turns out he also wrote a book, and the book, he wrote it in September 2022, and this is about curing his ED and just living with ED. He called it a self-help book, and the government asked him if there was anything about Cassie and Diddy in there, and he said, out of 182 pages, there's about 6 pages that refer to them, my experience with them as a wealthy married couple. He confirms he doesn't say their names, nothing like that. He just wanted to detail his experience experience in order to help other people. So they kind of, got ahead of that. So he said, he also said like the details aren't exactly accurate. Like he exaggerated a little bit just for the sake of the book. And so then Xavier Donaldson did the cross, and he's pretty funny. That's one of Diddy's defense attorneys. He's also known as a super lawyer. And he goes, so what's the name of your book? And the Punisher said, it's called In Search of Freezer Meat. And he's like, freezer meat, like hard meat. And everybody, like the jury was laughing. It was kind of funny. Everybody was laughing because, hard, he was talking about ED. Yeah, you guys get it. So he talks about how, you worked at Hunkamania and you have this website, thepunisher.com. And actually it turns out now Hayes, or the Punisher, is a partner in Hunkamania. And he said, so neither of those websites offer prostitution or sex work. And he's like, no. And he's like, so you're not a sex worker essentially. He also talked about the fact that the Punisher had been doing this for 25 to 30 years. And the Punisher called what he did while he was doing strip teases to women, he called them professional dry humps. And, Donaldson was like, so like you wouldn't professionally dry hump somebody that didn't want to be dry humped? And he's like, no, not at all. I want to make sure they're enjoying it, which led them to Cassie. And essentially he elicited testimony from Donaldson, which said that Cassie always appeared to be, quote unquote, enjoying herself to a degree, but he did not know, he couldn't speak to the fact if she ever climaxed. And it's not that she appeared to be enjoying herself every single time, 8 to 10 times, that he saw her. There was one particular instance that they spoke about, where he said she really appeared to be enjoying herself. I'm not going to get into the details. It was pretty graphic, I felt like, but sorry, it's busy out here. He hinted that he thought she enjoyed herself because he finished doing something to her and then she scooted forward without being directed by Diddy to do so. And then she kind of like looked at him and Diddy like gave her a head nod, like, go ahead, have fun. So, yeah, but the other 8 to 10 times, he just got the testimony out of him that, Cassie seemed fine. And this is my words, not his, paraphrasing. Just looking. He said at one point, Diddy came out of a room during a session and he threw condoms on the couch in like, I guess an aggressive way, but not in a threatening way. And he said, I want to see you F her. And then, he said one time he showed up at the room and Cassie had to cancel, so she gave him $500, and the defense was like, so you didn't always get paid for your quote unquote services, you got paid for your time. Just kind of, trying to just say he wasn't just coming over there for sex. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, he said she didn't appear to be on drugs. But then during the recross, the government was like, well, to be fair, like, did you ever see her? They didn't say to be fair, but they said, did you ever see her outside of these situations? No? Okay. And are you around people that take a lot of drugs? Do you take drugs? And he's like, no. And then that was really the end of that. And then we heard from Special Agent Gerard Gannon, who is Homeland Security, HSI Miami. He participated in the search of Diddy's Miami home on Star Island back in March of 2024. And again, a lot of it was the layout of the house. We saw a lot of pictures of the house. Man, this was a really nice house in my opinion. I was like, oof, that is beautiful. And we got to see the inside of the second floor and the closet that had the evidence that we saw on the screen and also in person, with Special Agent Gannon showing it to us on the stand. So we saw pictures of, in this closet, AR-15s, lower receivers with the magazines, and upper receivers that were wrapped in a towel. And then we saw 7-inch platform heels, condoms, sex toys, and then lingerie. And then we saw a crate of baby oil and Astroglide, literally a crate. And the magazines were loaded with bullets. There was 19 rounds in one AR-15 and then 10 in the other, and they were both semi-automatic. And let me see. I think that's pretty much it for today with what we saw. They said one of the AR-15s had a red dot optic on it, which is makes it easier to hit the target. The other AR-15 did not have that. They had an iron sight, less easy to hit a target. Oh, and they were defaced, which they had explained to us. It makes it very difficult or almost impossible to trace, a bullet to a gun and whatever. Sorry, very technical, whatever. And yeah, that was about it. So we're gonna finish with him tomorrow, and then we're told that Kid Cudi will testify this week. So that should be crazy.
Oh, my bad, sir. Sorry. No, I was basically saying this, chat. I don't like the fact that they bring up the guns. Everybody knows I'm a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment, right? And I understand why they would bring it up. Number one, in New York, weapons are still kind of seen as like taboo. It's usually seen when you bring it up in a criminal setting or in a criminal case. Like, oh, he was about to do something, but weapons are very normal in other places. They found this gun in Florida. And if I was Diddy's legal, I would be completely vehemently opposed to this gun be brought up, especially with no charges. No one got charged for it. I would be against that gun being brought up. However, I will say this. The weapon being brought up is going to be valid because the weapon is illegal. It's illegal in every county, state, and every district within the United States. Why? Because the serial number is defaced. Now, granted, since it's an illegal gun, it gives fair play for the government to bring up, even without charges. But I will say this. Diddy's house was frequented by many people, a lot of staff, a lot of assistants, a lot of security. There were kids. There were family members. There were other people. And we can't just say that was Diddy's gun. And that's why I'm like, if I was Diddy, I would probably try to fight it just off of the jury makeup. When people, I would think the average person in New York, especially if you got seated on a jury, if you heard somebody had a gun, you would think that they would be up to something. I don't think the natural thought of the average New Yorker is that if you have a gun, you're just protecting yourself. Now, I know Diddy's a famous celebrity, and maybe you come to that conclusion, but I do believe New York residents do look at, oh, you have a gun. Whoa, what you're into, right? So, yeah, shout out to Lauren. She does a good job. I'm not going to lie. Okay, now we have our guy.
Trial is in the books, and this afternoon featured testimony from an escort named the Punisher, who allegedly serviced Cassie at Diddy's discretion. I'm Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. I'm down at the courthouse every single day, providing you with an attorney's perspective as to how this case is unfolding. And this afternoon's testimony was a bit of a mixed bag for both the state and the defense. When we left off this morning, the escort, aka the Punisher, his name is Sherrod Hayes, was on the stand explaining about the first time that he engaged with Cassie and describing how he was simply putting oil on her and on himself, and she was putting oil on herself and on him. This afternoon it became clear that...
By the way, real quick, just because these guys are eyes and ears. Real talk, like no simping or nothing like that. Yo, the people who were watching their videos, like, please go send some support to Lauren. Go hit her up. Just be like, yo, thank you for your good work, and also send some good shit to my boy Logic. Like, he's been doing a pretty good job. I like what he's doing too. So please, like, again, I don't want to play their videos and you guys don't check them out. Please, we have 20,000 people in here. Please go check them out as well. All right.
They were regularly engaging in unprotected sex at Diddy's discretion on the 8 to 12 occasions that he was called to provide services and entertainment, or as he would call them, sexy scenes for Diddy to watch the Punisher and Cassie to engage in. Now, from the state's perspective, they're probably pleased that some of his testimony included allegations that it was fairly routine, not all the time, that Cassie would be sighing and wincing at the continual directions in the middle of their encounters for her to move the candlelight or do something else, and that seemed to be expressing some sort of frustration with his continual interceding into the display that they were putting on there. He also described how Diddy would stand over him and it made him feel pressurized, and talked about one incident when he had been servicing Cassie and that Diddy threw down some condoms and directed him to go full penetration, and that he could not perform. And he said that was the last time that he was there, and he had concerns that he had disappointed them. Now, those are all good for the state, but the cross-examination conducted by Xavier Donaldson was fairly effective in several respects. Number one is he pointed out that the Punisher is an escort who did dancing for women in these different bachelorette parties on a fairly regular basis for 25 to 30 years. In fact, he even wrote a book called In Search of Freezer Meat. You heard that correctly. About his about his own personal erectile dysfunction, and that had
somebody get that boy a honey pat, man.
Come up on direct. The state tried taking the sting out of that by bringing up that book, because in the book he references Cassie and Diddy not by name, but allegedly as a married wealthy couple, when he tells over some of his personal stories. So out of the 182-page book, he spent 6.5 pages talking about them. And in order to not have that blow up as some sort of surprise for the jury, that did come up on direct, and it was the first thing that Donaldson brought up when he went to cross. And he was talking about how when he was writing the book, that first and foremost that his dysfunction did not start as a result of Diddy, and that he was suffering the early effects of that before he ever met Cassie. But some of the strongest points that I felt Donaldson made this afternoon was when he was pointing out that you have experience engaging whether or not people are comfortable with the nature of the services you're providing. And he said yes. And you take cues from reading the room. Yes. And you also, when you were engaging with Cassie, did she ever look uncomfortable? And he said no. And from the defense's perspective, that's a pretty serious win. In fact, he brought down on one incident that he was talking about, is the first time that he actually engaged in actual intercourse with her, that he had been pleasuring her, and that he felt a sense of satisfaction that she seemed to be enjoying it, and that she had actually slid down closer to him without being directed by Diddy. This is the first time we've heard of her engaging in any sort of sexual conduct that was not at the complete direction of Diddy. And I'm sure that we can expect on closing arguments that the defense is going to point to this to say that she did have some autonomy, some freedom, and that she was enjoying it. And that's where Donaldson was making the most ground in trying to establish that this was not a tortuous experience, but that she was somewhat enjoying it. Although when he pressed further, Donaldson said that he could not say for certain that she ever experienced an orgasm, And Donaldson certainly seemed to swing and miss when he was hoping to hear testimony to the contrary, because from the defense's perspective, they want testimony that she was enjoying herself and that she was doing this of her own volition. He also testified in defense's favor that she did not seem like she was on drugs, she did not seem like he was intoxicated. He never took drugs, meaning the Punisher never took drugs. He said he never saw Diddy take drugs. On redirect, he said that he's not experienced in assessing who's on drugs and who isn't. But at the end of the day, he hadn't seen anyone consuming drugs. So that's what we got from the Punisher. We ended up moving on to the final witness of the day, who was Special Agent Jake Gannon. He's the individual who oversaw the raid on Diddy's house down in Miami. Now, Diddy owns a private mansion, I would call it, at Two Star Island, and there was a raid that was conducted there in roughly a year ago. And at that point, there was a whole bunch of evidence that was seized in the form of what he brought up so far being high heels, lubricant, and gun accessories, gun parts, gun accessories. And there was a considerable period of time where he was basically walking through how the raid was conducted, that it was pursuant to a search warrant, and step-by-step procedures they took to engage in the raid in a way that is consistent with constitutional law, and describe the artifacts that they found, which, as I said, was essentially lube, guns, and lingerie, and high heels. And he's in the middle of detailing and presenting to the jury these different artifacts that they recovered from the Diddy raid, and that's where we ended up stopping for the day. That's my breakdown for this afternoon. I urge you to please like, share, and subscribe. You want more Diddy updates to follow this case, there is no place you're going to get...
Okay. That's actually pretty interesting. Alrighty then. There's long crimes. Does long crimes have anything going on with it? All right. All good. All right, chat. Not gonna lie, we're calling it here. Remember, I'm trying to save my voice a little bit. There's a chance I come back tonight for regular topics, or I come back with Myron. I don't think I'm gonna come back with Myron tonight, though. I'm gonna be honest. So I think I'm gonna come back later. I'll give y'all maybe 2 hours. 1 hour is gonna be like just topics, and the other hour is gonna be like a kick type of like exclusive. But yo, chat. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hasn't been my best day. I told you I'm kind of nursing my voice a little bit. I went super hard yesterday, like kind of just shouting. So I'm gonna not like overdo it today. I'm just gonna kind of like chill out, and yeah, hopefully we could get everything going on back later tonight. All right, I'm gonna actually try to make some. What I gotta make? I said tea. I gotta make tea. Yo, chat, I ain't gonna lie, man. It sucks being single, nigga. Like, when you have a girl, you be like, yo, could you make me something? When you single, you gotta like, you ever see a guy in a well, I know how to cook. I'm really good at cooking. But when you like trying to make shit, it's just atrocious. It's all good. Maybe I just ordered on DoorDash. We said honey and what? Ginger? I might do that. All right, chat. I am getting off here, man. I know. Listen, my voice is about to be cooked. If I missed any donations or anybody who subbed up or gave a membership, I will come back later. I'm going to just give y'all 2 hours later. It's going to be a light 2 hours. We just have fun, okay? But I'm trying to save my voice because if my voice goes, I'm cooked for 2 days, 3 days. So my voice ain't go yet. I'm going to chill out and keep it low. All right, chat? Just bear with me. I still gave you guys about 7 hours. I appreciate you guys so much. I love you guys so much. Thank you for all the support. I know we've been doing phenomenal numbers. I'm getting off here with 20,000 people on, but I will be back not only probably later, but of course, tomorrow, every day I got to try to get up and get on at like before 9 o'clock. So bear with me, and we can't miss it there. All right. Love you guys. I will see you guys tomorrow or most likely tonight. All right, chat. I'll try to give you guys 2 hours tonight. And also I got to gamble a little bit. Know what I mean? All right, chat.
So the Diddy and Cassie situation has been getting freakier and freakier by the day. The more and more I hear about these allegations, Diddy is a freaky man, the king of the freak offs. And Cassie, you feel me? She was young, vulnerable. Um, but like what Ak said, she could have left. Like Diddy was not holding her. Well, this is what's hard for me. Allegedly, Diddy wasn't holding her hostage, but she said on the video that came out in the hotel where he hit her over and drug her back, she was trying to leave one of the freak offs. And Diddy said, "Oh no, you're not gonna leave the freak offs. You got it. Yeah. Wait till the dude, bust a nut, allegedly, then all over you, then scrape it off, go in the other room and rub it on my nipples." That's what he wanted. It sounds so crazy to say, but that's what Diddy wanted. Like, we seen him in the robe. I thought he was just fresh out the shower, but allegedly he was probably butt naked. I'm surprised there was no baby oil on her or him, or she wiped it off. That's why he was so mad. It was no baby oil on. Hey man, I genuinely feel bad for Cassie. I feel bad for her husband too, because he has to be in court and he's listening to all these things. And I don't really think Cassie's lying about anything. Like, Cassie just seems like a nice girl, probably like gentle, innocent, like, and she just wanted a career. Like, man, I'm struggling here because I want to be very, very honest about everything, like my point of view. I don't think Diddy was the best of best people, and I think everything he did to Cassie was wrong, and it was definitely manipulative and all that stuff. But like, is it sex trafficking though? Like, this is what he's charged for. Like, domestic violence, yes. Assault, yes. Like, probably a bunch of other crazy stuff, yes. But sex trafficking, bro, I don't know if you could say he was sex trafficking. But it's only day 2 of the trial. And I'm gonna be very, very unbiased about every single thing I say. It's day 2 of the trial. Diddy is he's there every day. They say that he's looking white as hell, he's gray as hell. He's, you feel me? They said he was looking at Cassie the whole time. But day 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe 2 weeks later, there might be someone else taking the stand, and we don't know how that's gonna go. Maybe like 3 days later, there's gonna be a new person taking the stand, and they just expose everything about Diddy. Like, we don't know fully everything Diddy's done yet. Like, there might have been men that he was having free calls with. Like, I ain't gonna lie, bro. Like, Ack was the line about what he said. Diddy should just came out and said that he was a flexible, bro. He should just said he was bisexual, bro. Like, I'm not gonna lie. And what Ack said, bro, all these rappers gotta come out who was around Diddy, like really, really hung around Diddy and was like really cool with him. They need to come out and like, yeah, bro. You gotta defend yourself, your integrity. You feel me? But it's your boy Big Act News. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And do you feel like Diddy's innocent, or do you feel like he's guilty? And we're talking about sex trafficking. Like, we're not talking about is he a good person or not. Do you think he's guilty of sex trafficking, Cassie? It's your boy Big Act News, and I'm out.